right, welcome back. You're watching Uongozi Today here on Morning Prime. We continue pace with the conversation, holding court with Dr. Barak Maluka, who's a Strategic Communications Advisor. Also, we're holding court this morning with Kipruto Rapkirwa, who is a governance and policy analyst, Dr. Martin Law, who is an advocate of the High Court. Of course, we want to be joined by Dr. Ivan Skidero. I don't know if he's slept through his alarm. They're not communicating as well. So we'll miss that as the other side of the debate as well. Barak had actually posed a question regarding Hubris and what you've seen so far, and where is the sort of leadership that we are questing for, because everyone has been pointing this to poor leadership and poor governance of a country, and the lack of action where it should be done. Now they want a whole overhaul. They're demanding for more things to be done. They're demanding for the reshuffling of the whole cabinet, or even doing away with the entire cabinet. There are demands that actually are coming to the fore that we will look into. But I wanted just to speak to the question of hubris.
Thank you, Debal. First, I think it would be remiss for me not to condole with the bereaved families.
Yes.
And perhaps you will cause us to have a moment of silence in honor of those fallen heroes.
Indeed.
Because they are fallen heroes, giving away their youthful lives so that we could hope to have a better country than we do have. The hubris, of course, you know the notion of hubris from the 1st century AD, the fall of Rome in the 1st century AD, and the Roman emperor who has been referred to as Tarquin the Proud, who would not listen to anybody who had his own way of doing things. And we have seen that this whole discourse on the public finance bill and the financial estimates has been informed by unbridled pride and arrogance, the inability to listen to anybody. That thinking that I know everything and I'm the president, I'm the commander-in-chief, and I'm always right, and because I'm always right, whatever I say goes, and it must be done at all costs. That is the crux of that which is called the hubris. And towards the end of this finance bill process, we see what seems to be a meek president eating humble pie and saying that I now withdraw this bill and it must be pulled out completely, I concede. Now you are hearing voices saying, but wait a minute, the whole government, the cabinet. You see, there's no way you can say as head of state and president, head of government, that you have conceded when you have not considered the cabinet. Because this finance bill was obviously processed through the cabinet. It must have been presented before the cabinet. The cabinet must have considered it and passed it, and then accepted to have it being passed to the chairman of the Parliamentary Budget and Finance and Budget Committee and gone through the motions. So one of the things that I expected President William Ruto to do beyond what Mheshimiwa Kirwa is saying, that he should have sounded more remorseful and more apologetic, is to acknowledge that as government they have failed. And if they have failed as government, remember the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi is saying a few days ago that this would then mean that people are saying that this government should resign as a whole. But short of this government resigning as a whole, I expect that by now President William Ruto should have asked his entire cabinet to resign so that he can attempt to give us a new government. You cannot concede without conceding those institutions, those individuals, and those entities that have misled you and pushed you to get the country into the bloodbath that we have witnessed in the streets of our country, not just in the capital city, but in other parts of the country as well. So we need to be seeing something drastic, something dramatic, something that shows that a lesson has been learned. Otherwise, this kind of arrogant pride of Kimani Ichung'wah talking about the protesters in declamatory terms. You see, Dibal, my colleagues, and the viewers, when you see the middle class in the streets, please understand that the end is in sight. The middle class is a class of people who are averse to risk. It's a class of people who look for private solutions to public challenges. It's a class of people that does not believe usually in going out to fight for popular causes, does not demonstrate in the streets. And when you see the sophisticated, educated young people that we have witnessed in the streets of this country, right across, the ones that Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, is calling the KFC class, protesting. You must understand that you are getting to the brink, that these are people who, when the school system is not working, the parents will take their children to private schools. When they don't believe in the university system, they will fly them out of the country to go and learn there. When there's no water in the country, in the estate, they will drill their own wells. When the hospitals are not working, they will take their children and themselves to private hospitals and even go to India and to the United Kingdom and to South Africa. That when there's no electricity, they will have their own solar systems and their own generators. Now, when you see that class of people in the streets, Mr. President, drop the pride, drop the arrogance. Listen, they are telling you that the writing is on the wall.
Honorable Kirwa has actually, on this podium, also indicated before that what we're seeing are hallmarks of a dictator, and you actually had given 6 months.
Yeah.
When I remember that, and I was like, truly, just you said, just give him 6 months and you'll see. This country will be in a topsy-turvy situation, right? So, from what tea leaves were you reading, you can tell us, or who spoke to you?
No. I don't want to invoke spiritual rain, because that would be elevating myself above.
Yes.
Above.
Yes. But you don't even need to go to the spiritual realm, Mheshimiwa. You can see.
Yeah, but you know,
the
most interesting
you see the writing on the wall.
Yes, at times I know the individuals that are around the president. I know him. I've known him for quite some time. But I'm no longer worried about him. I'm worried about those around him, because to give him his due, he worked for this position. He campaigned very hard. Whatever the results, I think I give him a lot of credit for he worked for it. But what worries me, Dibal, is the people around him, people like whoever Barak has mentioned, Kimani Ichung'wah, people like Oscar Sudi, people like Chiruyot, people like now this young man that I've had a lot of respect for, Kuria Kimani, and many others, including Dr. David Ndi, and of course head of public service, whose experience in public service and public policy I highly doubt. These are people who have arrogated themselves the feeling that they are the presidency, and therefore whatever they say would do. This is what is worrying me, and they don't make the president look presentable, because how come that everything they do after the act? Like even this issue of deployment of the military, if they had foreseen that situation, First of all, they would have told the police to be more civil than they were, because I remember the first time demonstrations were in town, the police and the demonstrators or protesters, they were almost in harmony. Then after some time, it's like somebody wanted some trouble. They now brought this, I don't know, is it red water and water cannons, and they started flashing people that you can see this must be having a lot of strength. You can imagine a young man being swept for almost 10 meters. If it was an old man like myself, I would actually be in hospital. Just that is enough. I don't need a bullet. Then the second issue is the last time we knew, rubber bullets used to do a lot of quelling of riots. It seems rubber bullets, they ran out of them. Now it is a bullet into somebody. Look at this Ibrahim from Nakuru. Is it Nakuru? No, yeah, the young man. 4 bullets, about 6 bullets.
6 bullets, indeed.
What was it? What is it?
That's intent to kill, actually.
It seems they were actually sure this boy has to be killed. So these are some of the things that worry me. And as I said, I'm not worried about the president. The only thing I'm worried about him is that he's totally impatient. Even if he was to have new cabinet, he's going to treat them the way he has treated this one. The last time I was told, because I meet people who go to cabinet, not necessarily ministers, but there are many other people in cabinet, as you know. He starts by praying, he prosecutes the paper himself, and he closes with prayers, so that the benefit of all people around the table, he does not take into account. Because I'm sure he would have been told the situation is as bad as it is. The third issue that I see, Dibal, is that there is no effective internal communication. Whatever the deputy president said in Mombasa, while I don't credit him with a lot of thinking when it comes to that, you cannot talk as if you don't stay in the same space with your own president, even including about compensating people on riparian land, all the things, even talking about Nurdin Haji. Nurdin may have a problem, but they have a committee of 9 where the deputy president is number 2 in the list. Why don't they deal with that particular issue? It is either nobody is listening to him anymore, or he chose to go to the public gallery and postulate himself as somebody different from this regime. Whether he's borrowing from his own boss, who disagreed with Uhuru, while he still continue to draw from the public coffers, his own salary, his own whatever upkeeping, it is something that worries me. Right. So in short, my take is that they should have a moment of reflection so that they can stay in the balance of the term. Personally,
the question is who are they? Because Debal, as Mheshimiwa Kirwa says, if you have the head of government, the president who comes, he prays, usually you would even give that responsibility to somebody else.
Yes.
Anyway, he prays. After he has prayed, he gives a lecture. After he has given a lecture, he dismisses you to go and do what?
And prays for you.
And then he prays again. Yeah? So that the whole cabinet meeting is a monologue. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Who are they? Who are these people who are going to have another think?
So that Mheshimiwa can finish that
thought.
Let me now add on to your fuel that you should be worried for the president, because he is surrounded by or with people that cannot face him in the eye, cannot challenge him, and he does not want that to happen. So what he needs is to find a team of rivals, a team of competitors. He needs to have a situation where he can come to a table like this and he's getting a different view, he's saying something, somebody is saying, then he can weigh and then go on. But if for him to do that, he must come down from the tree.
I can see Mheshimiwa is laughing, because I think that is what he doesn't really want.
He must come down.
Yeah, getting rivals on his table to challenge his decisions as the
Because you see, the problem is he has friends, but not even friends. He has people who who he owes, or rather people who come
who are indebted to him.
So when they come, first of all, it's a favor. You know, when you pick some fellow who has no record of anything, never managed anything, and you make them cabinet secretary for health, for example, surely, what can that person tell you? You know, does she even have something to do with health experience? So when you have people who do not have what it takes to hold certain positions, then you can give the lectures, as Barak is saying, because they don't know. You are the one who knows. But you see, if you look at the entire place, and I like a tweet I saw this morning from Halwale, basically pointing at the DP and pointing at the Prime Cabinet Secretary and pointing at, he pointed at 3 people and he said, look, these people's experience should have been available to the president.
Absolutely.
So that the president should not have found himself where he found himself. By the way, in 2005, when Kibaki lost the referendum on the constitutional bill, he took a retreat and did the unthinkable, dismissed his cabinet and reconstructed, because he said, I cannot find myself here having been advised by these people, and then I'm now having to have an egg on my face. The president is in that place, and I've said this when I started, but he must relook at how he's managing public service. He's going to fume around the servicemen, the military, the security apparatus. No. How is the public service functioning? Because that budget-making process, if nothing else, it is actually a reflection of the functioning or lack of, or dysfunction. The orchestra is dysfunctional. The ensemble is not working. So that what you are saying is that where somebody like Kibaki was great at was precisely his public service record, his affinity around issues of economics, and when it came to the budget, he was with it. He read it, he actually approved it before it went out. When the president says in public that this thing was big, in fact it was 4.something trillion, I told them to reduce by 200. I would ask,
on what basis?
On what basis? Yeah, you should have said, look, get me this thing. Mine is bottom up. When you're a bottom up guy, start from a zero. Say, now let's build this thing up. Because you're saying it's zero, what do we want to do? And that way you'll find where fat is, cut fat off, leave lean meat, and say, I want a budget of X because it will deliver Y. So for us, I am not convinced that he himself has the vision, has the understanding of what this budget should do, apart from his pet projects, housing, whatnot. But what are you taking us to? You can even ask, what is the vision behind affordable housing? Yes, we're putting money there, but what is happening in reality? In reality is that developers are developing this using their own money and selling. So what is happening to our levies? Where is it going? No wonder it's sitting in the bonds. Yeah.
It's sitting in bonds right now, but we want just also to question the issue of also the executive itself. There seems to be speaking from both sides of the mouth. Yeah. And Barak, you've been in government, you can tell us, was it a breach of protocol? The president gave his address, then we have another address coming from Mombasa. Let's just listen to some of the salient issues that were raised in this particular address from Mombasa by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua.
The security sector was caught off guard by the intensity, the anger of the Kenyan people, the agitation of the Kenyan people, the resilience of the Kenyan people. Had Nurdin Haji done his job, we will not be where we are today. He has no capacity. He is out of the country most of the time on business trips. The country is on its own. It had to take people to die, property to be destroyed, protests across the country for the president to know the truth of what the people of Kenya feel. Yet, there is an organization paid for by the public to brief the president and the government about the feeling of the Kenyan people. Officers of the National Intelligence Service, officers of the National Police Service have told me in confidence They did not get advanced intelligence briefs about the magnitude of the protest in Eldoret, in Kericho, in Nairobi, in Githurai, in Embu, in Nyeri. Since independence, there has been protests around Parliament. Never have protesters invaded and gotten inside Parliament. Nurdin Haj must take responsibility for the deaths that occurred. He must take responsibility for the mayhem. He must take responsibility for failing President William Ruto. He must take responsibility for failing the government of the Republic of Kenya. He must take responsibility for failing the Kenyan nation by not doing his job and advising correctly. And he must do the honorable thing, not just take responsibility, but resign from that office and allow the president to pick a competent director general. The pain, the anguish, the torment, innocent young children whose only crime was to air their views in a democratic country. Nurdin Haji was trying to put up a team together to craft lies and propaganda and attribute the chaos that were in the country to leaders, I included, former President Uhuru Kenyatta and others. Yet it is very clear, and the president has admitted, that these protests were caused by the anger of the people of Kenya.
All right. We've seen also leaders from the northern region of the country saying, hey, we should, if this were really uncalled for, and he shouldn't have actually played all this sentiment to the public gallery. Barak, your reaction?
I think that by the time you see somebody coming out to ventilate in public space and is ventilating what is clearly sounding like frustration, he has had the opportunity to ventilate internally, and they've gotten to a point where nothing is happening. Now, I've taken a number of quick observations from what the Deputy President is saying. Number one, he's saying the country is on its own. Mm-hmm. Those were his words. The country is on its own. Number two, he said the expression, he's always on foreign trips. Now, this is an oblique way of taking the war to his boss, because his boss is always on trips. His boss does not have the time to sit down, to think, to listen, to receive wise counsel, to even be briefed by the head of the National Intelligence Services, and to be able, therefore, to take informed decisions. He lands in on Monday morning. On Wednesday, he's on the next jet, and he transfers from one country to the next country. That is not what presidents do. Presidents sit down and govern. They receive reports, they receive counsel, they receive wisdom, they reflect, they process, and they govern. Now, here is a house that is divided against itself in very sensitive spaces. It would even be tolerable if they were divided on some policy issue somewhere and they were debating it and not being able to agree, and someone saying, then let yours carry the day because of the patching order. But they are disagreeing on matters of national security. That when we talk about the National Security Council, it is not holding together. The president is going in one direction, the deputy president is going in another direction, and you have the head of NIS, in fact, also replying and dragging in the ethnic card. And we are seeing people from his ethnic community also assembling and throwing their own barbs, including someone who sometimes presides over the business of the National Assembly, leading also his tribe to throw brickbats back at the deputy president.
Where the Gen Z is right now trying to extricate Kenya from.
Yes, and the Gen Z are trying to pull us from that space.
Card, yes.
So we are in a dangerous space. But the old saying holds that when the alligator comes from the sea to tell us that crocodile is unwell, we must believe him. We must believe these things which Rigiji is saying. And having believed them, we must ask him to separate himself completely from that space so that he can then ventilate freely. He cannot be staying in that space and also purporting to be frustrated. He should get out of that space and enjoy the freedom of total absence of association with that space and hold the views that is holding very robustly and go on therefore to execute them and prosecute them with the relevant credence.
Right.
I said, Debal, that I'm not worried about the president. But I'm still worried for the president. But my friends had problems with prepositions, so they took it away from me.
You never went to good schools.
You went to elitist schools.
It was here in Man.
You never went to such schools.
So I'm worried for the president because I'm worried for him because these are people who, in my own estimation, have nothing to lose by confusing the presidency. Some of them may survive as members of parliament beyond the term of President Ruto. I'm worried for him because he has refused to sit down and deal with the government as a going concern, as an entity that has structures that are self-checking. For the deputy president to make that statement, it also worries me because the last time I knew, and the current constitution provides specifically who are the members of national security. There are 9 of them, and 3 of them are the officers of government, the IG, the boss of NIS, and CDF. And those 3 can brief the president about security situation in Kenya without the presence of any other member of Security Council. This therefore means the NIS boss can brief the president without the presence of the other 8 members or the other 7 members. So that it's the 2 of them, the president and him. CDF also, because there is no deputy commander-in-chief, will brief the president without any other member of the Security Council. IG, the same. This therefore means either the deputy president has not understood the architecture of the government or has been frustrated. And for me, it is more of the latter because he's somebody who started with provincial administration. He has been in parliament for 5 years. Now he has been in government for 2 years or about 2 years. Therefore, he's a good learner. He must have known. But I feel there is some kind of a cabal of opportunists who are confusing the presidency. This is the crux of the matter. Say that the president is not being allowed to think straight and deal with the system, or is allowing himself to be confused by some of these individuals who, when he disappears from the scene, these individuals have nothing to lose. They will go to a corner of the public space and occupy that space and pretend they were not part of the old system. We know them because they are those who come from President Moi's regime, those who come from President Uhuru's regime, and even Kibaki's regime, who are pretending to be innocent to the extent that nobody knows that they were part of the problem when those presidents were ruling or were in power. So my worry is that I think we need to beseech the president. Today I want to be humbler. We need to beseech him to learn basics about how to run government. How to run government, don't entertain fitina from a junior officer, an MP whose credentials are not known, then to come and backbite the deputy president. That is the beginning of the problem. You remember the deputy president went to Wasingishu. He did a lot of lambasting of some guys, and those guys were allowed to get back to him, and the president, while in Bungoma, said those guys were doing the right thing because they were learning about the rest of the country. So the president is the one who has been encouraging this confusion, and if anything happened that he does not complete the 5 years that he has been given by the people of this country, he has himself to blame. Yeah.
Right. On the issue of government protocol, was there any breach of the government protocol? Because this is what I want to ask. Or was this also organized that we'll have one statement coming from State House and another one coming from Mombasa, right? So this will be maybe the dog attack from the on the political avenue of that particular message, and this is the message, the other one that the president was bound out to give for the country.
If Nurdin does not resign, then that was a breach of protocol by the deputy president. But it could have also been choreographed. Possibly they know where the problem is.
Yeah, was it choreographed?
I'm just worried about the choreograph or even the protocol. I'm actually worried about the consistency within which or with which things are happening. Remember, President Ruto was a product of defiance, rebellion around his boss. In his own regime, there's a consistency where his own deputy is also rebellious, defiant, and also his own person, wanting to carve out, and even in style, you can see that he is now endearing himself more to the people, the deputy president, than his boss. So there is a consistency here, there's a pattern. And I think that ever since we've had the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and the fact that the deputy position is very much embedded in the Constitution, we have seen a different breed of deputy presidents, right from Deputy President William Ruto and now the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. So there is a consistency there. The problem with that consistency is what then it portends and what then it embeds in our public sphere or public governance in terms of accountability, in terms of responsibility, in terms of the spirit that is envisaged in Article 10 of our principles and values. Because then it will appear that we are not consulting, we are not being inclusive, and for that reason we are seeing divisiveness in the cabinet or in the government that is not sending the right messages to people. Is Gachagua in danger? Absolutely. He's being attacked by members of parliament, and there has been, and I don't know that I think all of us have seen that tweet from Moses Kuria, which essentially says that both Uhuru Kenyatta and Rigathi have been said to be the sponsors. Now, Kuria says that he does not like Uhuru, but he does not want to bring Uhuru into this. He wants to deal with Gachagua one-to-one. So what is then happening is that we are going to see unleashing of attack dogs on Gachagua, whether genuinely or not. And there is a basis for him to have complained publicly. Mm-hmm. There could be a dossier somewhere.
Was he saving face as well for his own political expediency?
Mm-hmm. There was a preemptive attack. So that that is what we should read, that there's something. Because remember when he retreated and switched off his phone and went to pray, mm-hmm. we don't know whether he was facing Mount Kenya or he was praying facing heaven, but he went to pray. From that point, he's hit the ground. He's making, he's making statements, and he seems to be mobilizing. So that report must be sitting somewhere, saying this is the implication of what this is, of the actions that he's engaging in. So there is a report somewhere, and he must be a worried man, and you preempt by opening the lead so that people can know that this is the issue. Because as Mheshimiwa says, the director of NIS has a direct contact to the president on a daily basis. Not on those meetings of National Security Council. Those happen, but those are formalized. But in terms of security briefings, in terms of intelligence briefings, daily. So does the IG, so does the CDF. So those happen at that level. Nobody else is involved. Not even the Cabinet Secretary for Interior is aware, much as he's also part of the National Security Council and the Cabinet Secretary for Defense and just about those, and of course the AG and others. So that at that level, you expect that there is some knowledge. But again, we have said that in a dysfunctional orchestra, what you then tend to hear loudly are those off-key tunes.
The discordant
off-key
yes.
tunes, the discordant.
Yes.
So we're getting the results of the dysfunctional orchestra. And those off-key tunes are very telling at the moment.
Mm-hmm. All right, Barak, on that particular bit as well,
yes.
because now you've also raised the issue of community, where we are really breaking away from those brands of politics. Are we seeing ourselves, given where we've been taken by the Generation Z, to another plane and plateau as far as our political landscape is concerned and our branding is concerned? Is this now the death of Tawi movement? Are we seeing the death of the Mount Kenya region, the Kamwene? Are we seeing the Wiper region, which is balkanization of the Kambas, balkanization of the Luyas? I think that particular sort of brand of politics is what the Gen Z is saying, no, listen to us. We are tribeless and we want a new brand of politics at the end of the day. So moving forward, how does those really change the dynamics of our politics, the dynamics of even our campaigns? Will we be greatly shy to, have that particular wild card of tribalism?
Young people generally tend to be detribalized. But for some reason, when they get older and they get into those spaces, they tend to be a little more tribal. For me, if you are my age, mm-hmm. then there's a huge sense of deja vu mm-hmm. in all these things that are happening. I cannot help feeling that I have been
somewhere
in this space
before.
Mm-hmm. It's not the first time, for example, that I'm seeing the military in the streets mm-hmm. of Nairobi. Mm-hmm. I was a young man at the University of Nairobi mm-hmm. in 1982, when, in fact, my student leader went behind the microphones at the Voice of Kenya and announced that we have taken over the government. We did not just break into the space of a protected entity. That together with the Kenya Air Force in 1982, students of the University of Nairobi, and who were speaking with one voice, got into that space of protection and made a proclamation. And we were in the habit, even then as young people, of getting into the streets every so often to protest over one thing or the other. Call us the baby boom generation. Mm-hmm. And that generation was also bringing about change in different parts of the world. It removed Ferdinand Marcos, the Philippines. It removed Baby Doc mm-hmm. in Haiti. It removed Mohammed Shah Reza Pahlavi from power in Iran and in other places. So it's something that keeps happening. The baby boomers, the ones who were born 1945 to 1954, in 1968 they caused President Charles de Gaulle of France to run away and go and hide in Germany for a few days. So the question is how consistent and how persistent they can be. Some of these are going to get into the political space proper. Are they going to get into alignment with the tribes? Yesterday, as the Somali leaders were ventilating in favor of their man, Nurdin Haji, again, you could see young people. You could see millennials from that community flanking. You could see Gen Zs from that community again flanking. So I do not know whether I can talk with precision about the de-ethnicization of politics and hope that going forward, this is it. What happened to us? David Murathe was within my generation. Has he taken up his space properly within the ethnic community? Have I taken up my space properly within my ethnic community? Have other people, as Musalia Mudavadi, who was with us during that generation, has he taken up his space? And you know, some of the people I mentioned were even arrested and incarcerated for quite some time. Murathe was arrested, Mudavadi was arrested, and there are many other people within that generation. So that I would address or embrace the emerging solidarity within the Gen Z with optimistic caution. I'll be cautiously optimistic.
All right. What do you think? Are we breaking away, or still this is too early to make the call that this is a new brand of politics with this gesture that we've seen from Gen Z?
Yeah, they were good signs, and I do want to appreciate them because they were able really to do what has not been done since independence.
Since 1982.
Huh?
Not since independence.
No.
My only disappointment.
Since 1982.
No.
My only disappointment.
You see,
Barack was never arrested.
he was never arrested because he was part of the other team.
No, the people who are in the other team. Wait a minute.
Which team?
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. The people.
I like getting information.
I'll tell you. Now that
he gets intelligence.
Now that you bring it, the people who are in the other team were Moses Wetangula
Masika.
and JBN Muturi, and you can see they are in the other team. Of course, in 1982 itself, they had already left the university the previous year, but we had been with them all along, from 1978 when they joined the university. And it is remembered that during one of our protests, and this is documented, they went to one of the media houses to distance themselves from the agitation and the popular unrest by the students of the University of Nairobi. And they told their editors, we don't want you to publish our names. We distance ourselves. Moses Masika Wetangula, I can face this camera and say that he did that, and JBN Muturi. And they said, don't publish our names. And the editors complied. They did not publish their names, but they published their photographs and said, yes, and said these students who have distanced themselves from this agitation have told us not to publish their names. And we were not agitating about things like food or what, or we were talking about democracy in the country. We were talking about totalitarianism that was emerging in the country. We were talking about the South African situation. And yes, and those days there was something called the takeover of the proletariat. We believed in such notions.
So they went chicken.
So
they went chicken.
And then finally, ask yourself, where is Moses Wetangula today? Where is he? Where is he sitting in this whole drama? Where is JBN Muturi? Where is he sitting in this whole drama? And you can see where the ailment is, that we must have a reference frame. They have embraced now the young William Ruto, because while we talk about the age factor, in fact, for me, one of the challenges is that elders, people who have wisdom, who should be giving guidance, are either missing completely from the scene, or they have abdicated their responsibilities. Because by and large, the government itself is fairly youthful. You have got President William Ruto, who is in his 50s, and a coterie of greenhorns who refer to him as Mzee. Since when did someone like President William Ruto become a Mzee? He's not a Mzee. There's absence of wisdom in that council, in that formation, and the elders who are there, Musalia Mudavadi, Machogu, Muturi, Wetangula, have abdicated their responsibility. Wetangula should never have processed this bill up to the point that he even has the temerity to take it to the president for presidential assent as the Speaker of the National Assembly. He should have known that he was smearing egg on the face of the president, and the president being a younger person and comparatively a greenhorn, Wetangula should have told him, this one is not going to fly. And my brother, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, should have told him, this is not going to fly. And Ezekiel Machogu should have told him, this is not going to fly. The rest of the people around him are youngsters, greenhorns, who are thinking about acquiring VXS and building palatial homes. I cannot blame them. They are in that space of youthful appetite for self-aggrandizement.
Right. So people daily put it as a blind sycophancy, as you can see it here. And of course, the first one on the picture there is Moses Masika Wetangula. So it began. He's been going chicken since then, as history will bear us out.
Alianza Zamani.
Alianza Zamani.
But you see you know, Barack runs the risk of behaving like William. He never listened to me why I was saying.
You see, you need more information, and now you're accusing me.
I can't be William.
I enjoy listening to him.
I can't be William. That's why
I listening to him.
That's why I allocated that space. I can't be
He
William.
does not enjoy listening to others. The reason I wanted to give is that suspending of finance bill is happening for the first time since independence. But I think it took away before I completed my sentence. Perhaps I'm slower than him, and perhaps he's full of history. And that history is very useful because we have provoked him now to tell us the guys who are on the other side by actually saying it was he who was on the other side, or it is he who was on the other side. But Gen Z, for me, this is a good sign of things to come. Because change in society either comes from the top or comes from the bottom. What we need to do as elders now, because the three of us are sufficiently qualified to say we are elders, is to encourage the Gen Z and also to encourage them to think of how to improve their leadership structure, such that even if they were to identify an elder like Barack Muluka to lead them for the intervening period, Muluka will know that his services have been hired for a temporary period.
Yes.
And therefore provide the best for the country and for future generations. Why do I say this? Remember, 6 weeks after Nyerere became Prime Minister of Tanzania, he resigned and allowed Rashid Kawawa to run the country for 1 year. What did he do? He went back to the grassroots to build the party and also imbue in the people of Tanganyika at that particular time the values of being a Tanganyikan. And he did it so well that when he came back and took over as now the president of the Republic of Tanganyika, he put in the school program certain values that will assist the country to allow somebody to be proud of being a Tanganyikan, and also to mystify the issue of tribe. This is something that we need to consciously do. And I thought, and we used to share with President William Ruto, how do we build this party of ours? By then it was UDA, before it morphed now into what I think they want to form. And one of the issues was, how can we build a party that will stay beyond his time as the president of the republic? And if he had borrowed that leaf from Tanzania, formerly Tanganyika, he would be doing very well. But now the challenge is one. Will he have the time to build that brand of a party that will transcend the period he's in power? Because he's struggling to survive in the next 3 years. And that is what is worrying me. But in my own basic or organic thinking, William Ruto meant well for this country. But he has been hijacked by this cabal of individuals around him who are taking him astray from the initial course. The second problem that he has is his own capacity to listen. And that's why I was telling Barack Muluka, at times listen to me up to the end. Otherwise he will be fighting me, but I enjoy when he fights me, I provoke him to tell me more information. Because my job is really to get as much information as possible. I don't work for somebody, I work for myself because I want to be an elder. And in old age, I want to exude wisdom, experience, and knowledge. And there is no better person to give knowledge other than Barack Muluka. Yeah.
All right, Barack,
I'm still listening.
I've taken him to size.
Right.
I would like to empathize, but also call the president out, because I would like him. I feel him. I feel that he's not in a good place as a leader. He feels exposed. He feels discouraged. So I would like to encourage him by telling him to step back and reflect and ask, what are his wishes for his presidency? What legacy would he like to leave behind? And who can help him to actually achieve that legacy? So all is not lost. He has a very good opportunity not to waste this crisis. A crisis should never be wasted.
Indeed.
He should learn from this crisis, take a retreat, reorganize, call a few fellows like me who don't like him to tell him what is going wrong, and then we'll leave him to run. We don't need to sit there with him. So let him try and listen to different views, especially views that he does not like or that do not necessarily agree with his position. Then let him fashion something in between. One of the things that made Obama a great leader, and Obama left a great legacy in the US, was his ability to listen, to process, and always approach issues in a bipartisan, always wanting to have the best of the situation rather than having the perfect resolution. So that helps, especially in governance of public affairs, to be able to carry people with you, not to isolate people from yourself. And therefore, then, even in his style, which I believe is capable of changing, he should now just become a little of a listener, the way Barack has just been for a while.
Barack is shaking his head as if there's no room.
Barack was going on, he has been reminded to be a listener.
So you saw him intimidate me.
You saw him relax.
I refuse to be intimidated. Carry on.
We are encouraging the president to take a back seat. And nothing, in a leader, humility is not weakness. In a leader, arrogance, hubris, chest thumping is a weakness. Because then even the people with an idea won't come to you. You will dismiss them, you will ignore them, and you will never benefit from an idea that could have made yours better. So humility in leadership is key. Being true to self, having feelings, having emotional intelligence is critical for public office, because people feel you when you feel their hearts. People come along with you when they know that you mean well for them. So you do not want to be sitting up in your office and telling people who are hurting that it is not enough. Wait, I am still at it. It's going to hurt even some more. That is not a message you want to encourage people with. You want people to know that you mean well, though initially it's a bit painful, but you carry them with you. So that's the ability that he needs to develop over this crisis period. The other thing that I've said, which if he considers seriously, is to look at, running public affairs. There is a reason why Kibaki hung around with Muthaura, whose time had expired, but he hung around with him. When Uhuru and Ruto came, they found a man who was on retirement called Joseph Kinyo. They hung around him. This country, the best part of this country has been what was called the head of public service. At some point, it was called the chief secretary during Nyanchae's days. This country has had the likes of Francis Kwindwa. I'm not sure that Leting was as great, but there have been very good people, very experienced, seasoned Kierenis or Karidis. There were people, and that is, people don't. So there are times when we don't understand, and this is where, for example, in countries like the UK or even the US, have perfected public service as the area for professionalization, and that's what keeps the political system going.
Fantastic.
But we have politicized it ourselves and put weak links there.
All right, we want to take a short break, and I like what you said as well, that we had David Wilkerson saying, do not waste your afflictions, but learn from your afflictions as well. As you're saying, you should not waste this opportunity, but you can glean more from the opportunity. When we want to circle back, of course, this revolution, so to speak, or the protests have caused the calls for some reforms, radical reforms, as it has been illustrated in today's Star, and we'll be looking at this as well. If my director may just pick a few before we take a short break. Some new demands for Ruto, just for also our panelists to consider as well, and you to consider. This is what they're saying, that first of all, abolish funding to First Lady, Second Lady, abolish the housing levy. Could you pick it, please, before we go? Right, abolish funding to First Lady, Second Lady, abolish the housing levy. This is what they are demanding. Fire corrupt cabinet secretaries. Also review salaries of MPs. Reduce wastage in government, including travel. You'd miss this. Review salaries of MPs. Fire corrupt cabinet secretaries. Abolish funding of First Lady, Second Lady, abolish the housing levy, decline to recreate positions for chief administrative secretaries, create more opportunities for the youth, lifestyle audit of flashy state officers, and change Kenya Kwanza leadership in lineup in Parliament, and of course, Zakayo Ameshuka, what next? These are some of the radical reforms that they are gagging for. We take a short break. You're watching Uongozi Today.